They say that when your life is too perfect, it's just the calm before the storm. Back then, I never believed it. I was living what I thought was a dream: a beautiful wife, a cozy suburban home just outside Charlotte, North Carolina, and a steady job at an accounting firm that paid enough for weekend getaways and Friday night wine tastings. My wife's name was Emily. We had met in college. She was the one who lit up every room she walked into. Her laughter had that kind of ripple effect that made even the grumpiest souls crack a smile. She had a smile that felt like home. Her deep brown eyes always shimmered with something playful, a mischief I adored. We had been married for 7 years. 7 smooth, happy, faithful years. Or so I thought. Our house was one of those classic American dreams: 2 stories, a little red door, a front porch where we had coffee every Sunday morning. Emily loved decorating it, changing things up every season. Wreaths, fairy lights, autumn pumpkins. Our home always looked like a page out of a lifestyle magazine. I trusted her with everything. There wasn't a bone in my body that doubted her loyalty. We had our routines: morning coffee, quick goodbye kisses before work, texts during the day checking in, dinner together most nights. Emily worked at a local marketing agency. She loved it. She often stayed late for meetings or team projects, and I never once questioned it. Why would I? We were solid. Or so I thought. It started with small things. The way her phone seemed to always be face down. The way she'd slip into the other room to take calls, whispering too low for me to catch anything. But I chalked it up to stress. Emily had been working hard on landing a big account at her firm. That's what she said, and I believed her. I wanted to believe her. There were nights when she came home later than usual, smelling not of her usual lavender body mist but something sharper, almost masculine. Again, I brushed it off. Told myself not to be that guy, the paranoid husband. I was wrong not to trust my gut. The first real crack showed on a Saturday afternoon. We were at the mall, nothing special, just running errands. Emily wanted to pick up a few things from Bella Bloom Beauty, her favorite beauty store. I hated those stores, all floral smells and bright lights, so I told her I'd wait for her outside by the benches. She kissed my cheek, said, "I'll be quick, babe," and disappeared into the neon wonderland. While waiting, I scrolled through my phone, played a few rounds of Candy Crush, and almost dozed off. I must have been sitting there for nearly 40 minutes before she came back out, a bright pink bag swinging from her wrist and a beaming smile on her face. I didn't think much of it until later that night. Emily was in the shower, humming to herself, when I noticed the pink bag left open on our bedroom dresser. A folded-up receipt was peeking out. Normally, I wouldn't have cared. But something, maybe the way she had been acting lately, made me reach for it. That's when the first seed of doubt planted itself in my mind. The receipt was odd. It wasn't just the usual things she bought: mascara, face creams, that expensive hair serum she loved. There was a separate, high-priced item listed. Luxury men's cologne, $210. Men's cologne. A luxury brand I didn't even recognize. I stared at it, my heart hammering harder with each passing second. Maybe it was a gift? Maybe she bought it for me? My birthday was months away, though. Something didn't sit right. And deep down, I knew. I folded the receipt carefully and slid it into my wallet. I didn't confront her that night. Or the night after. I needed more. I needed proof. Because if what my gut was screaming at me was true, I wasn't just risking a fight. I was risking the destruction of everything I thought was real. Over the next few days, I tried to act normal. I smiled. I kissed her goodnight. I made her coffee in the mornings like always. But behind my smile, my mind was a battlefield. Every time Emily looked at her phone, every time she left the room to take a call, every time she came home just a little too late, I felt the walls closing in. The receipt burned in my wallet like a live wire. I couldn't shake it. Luxury men's cologne. Not cheap. Not casual. It meant something. And it wasn't meant for me. One night, I made up an excuse, said I had a work project and needed to stay late at the office. I kissed her goodbye, grabbed my laptop bag, and drove not to my office, but back to Bella Bloom Beauty. If there was an answer, I was going to find it there. The store was almost empty when I walked in, just a couple of teenage girls browsing lip glosses and an employee arranging shelves. I approached the counter where a young woman in a black apron was typing into the register. "Hi, can I help you?" she chirped. I pulled the receipt from my wallet and laid it on the counter. "Yeah. I was just wondering," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "This cologne, the one on the receipt, can you tell me a little more about it?" She glanced at it, then smiled. "Oh, that one's a bestseller. Super high-end. Very sexy," she said with a wink. "It's a signature scent. Usually women buy it for their boyfriends, or..." She trailed off, giving me a mischievous look. "Or what?" I pressed, my stomach twisting. She shrugged. "You know. They're special friends." I forced a laugh and nodded, trying to seem casual. "Do you remember who bought this one?" The girl tilted her head, thinking. "Honestly? We have a lot of customers. But I do remember one lady last weekend, she bought that cologne, and she was kinda giggly about it." "Giggly how?" I asked. "Like, flirty?" She said she wanted something irresistible for a guy who swept her off her feet. I remember because she kept blushing and texting on her phone the whole time. My mouth went dry. I thanked her and left. My hands were shaking as I got back into my car. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't innocent. My wife, the woman I had loved, trusted, and built a life with, had bought a $210 bottle of cologne for another man. A man who apparently swept her off her feet. I drove around aimlessly for an hour after that, unable to go home, unable to think straight. Memories flashed through my mind like a cruel movie: our wedding, our vacations, our late-night talks about growing old together. All of it tainted now. When I finally pulled into our driveway, it was late. The house was dark except for the faint golden glow from the living room lamp. Emily was curled up on the couch, wearing one of my old college sweatshirts, looking cozy and innocent. "Hey, babe," she said sleepily as I walked in. "Long day?" I nodded, forcing a smile so tight it hurt my face. "Yeah, long day." Inside, though, something inside me had cracked wide open. And it wasn't going to be easy to put the pieces back together. Not this time. Saturday mornings were sacred in our home. It was our unspoken rule: no alarms, no rushing, no obligations until at least noon. Cooper usually jumped on the bed, waking us up with his clumsy enthusiasm. But that morning, Emily was already gone. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe she went for a run? Maybe she had an early hair appointment? She was spontaneous like that, always filling her calendar with little surprises for herself. I decided to surprise her back. I threw on a hoodie, grabbed my keys, and headed to Blossom Beauty, her favorite beauty store downtown. I figured I'd pick up a gift card, maybe a little thank you card tucked into a basket of her favorite skincare products. She loved little gestures like that. Or at least, I thought she did. When I stepped into the store, the scent of vanilla and something floral hit me instantly. It was bright inside, everything white and pastel, gleaming under soft lighting. Rows of creams, serums, and perfumes lined the walls. A young woman behind the counter smiled at me, her name tag reading Sierra. "Can I help you find anything today?" she chirped. "Yeah, actually," I said, pulling my phone out to check the list of products Emily had once mentioned. "I'm looking for a few things my wife loves." Sierra lit up at the word wife. "That's so sweet. Do you know what she usually gets?" I rattled off a few brands, a few descriptions, and Sierra nodded along, leading me to the right aisles. As we gathered the products, she asked casually. "She's lucky. We don't get a lot of husbands in here doing this." I chuckled. "She's worth it." At checkout, as I handed over my card, Sierra's brow furrowed. "Hey, funny thing. This isn't your first time here today, is it? I blinked. Pretty sure it is. Sierra laughed awkwardly, scanning the items. Sorry, it's just someone with the same last name bought almost the same stuff about an hour ago. Thought maybe you two were coordinating. Same last name? I repeated, the words sticking in my throat. Yeah. Emily Carson, right? She said it so casually, like she was confirming I wanted a paper bag. My stomach dropped. Yeah, that's her, I managed to say, forcing a smile. Sierra tucked the receipt into the bag and handed it to me with a cheerful, "Have a great day." I stumbled out of the store like I'd been hit by a truck. Standing on the sidewalk, bag dangling from my hand, I pulled out the receipt she'd given me. And there it was, plain as day. Customer name, Emily Carson. Transaction time, 9:42 a.m. Items purchased, various skincare, lipstick, fragrance. Special note, gift wrap requested. 4J. 4J. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs. Who the hell was Jay? She wasn't shopping for herself. She wasn't buying treats to pamper herself after a long week. She was buying gifts. For someone else. Someone whose name started with J. I sat in my car for a long time, the engine running but going nowhere. The questions spun in my head, violent and relentless. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe it was for a friend, a coworker, a cousin. But deep down, something darker gnawed at me. The kind of feeling you get before the world as you know it tilts sideways. When I finally pulled into our driveway, Emily's car was already parked neatly in the garage. I walked into the house, clutching the beauty store bag like a grenade about to explode. She was in the kitchen, sipping coffee, scrolling on her phone, her face lighting up at some unseen message. "Hey babe," she said without looking up. I stared at her, feeling like I was observing a stranger. "Morning," I mumbled, setting the bag down on the counter. She glanced at it. "What's that?" "Picked up some stuff for you," I said carefully. "Thought you'd like a little surprise." Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second. So fast most people wouldn't have noticed. But I noticed. I noticed everything now. That night, lying in bed next to her, I stared at the ceiling while she drifted off into peaceful sleep. She had kissed me goodnight like always. She had wrapped her arms around me like always. But nothing about it felt the same. I was drowning in questions I didn't dare ask. Who was Jay? Why was she shopping for him? What else was she hiding? I didn't sleep a second that night. Instead, I started thinking about the one thing I never thought I would need. Proof. The next few days were a masterclass in pretending. Pretending I wasn't suspicious. Pretending I wasn't dying inside every time Emily smiled at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. I told myself I needed more than a name on a receipt. I needed the whole story. Because if I was wrong, if there was even a tiny chance this was all a misunderstanding, I would ruin our marriage for nothing. But if I was right. God help me, if I was right. Tuesday evening, Emily announced she had a late client meeting at her office. She kissed me goodbye, spritzed herself with the new fragrance she had bought, the same one from the receipt, and practically floated out the door. I waited exactly 15 minutes. Then I grabbed my jacket and keys, and followed. I stayed several cars behind, heart hammering, palms sweaty on the steering wheel. She didn't drive toward downtown like I expected. Instead, she took the highway heading toward the industrial part of the city where warehouse spaces and cheap motels lined the streets like skeletons. Finally, she pulled into a nondescript parking lot behind a bar called the Hollow Taproom. Nothing fancy. Dim lights, peeling paint on the sign. I parked across the street, heart pounding so hard it blurred my vision. Emily didn't even hesitate. She walked straight to the side door, and standing there, waiting for her, was a man. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Wearing a leather jacket. He wasn't some faceless nobody. I recognized him instantly. Jason Miller. Her old college friend. We had met him once, years ago at a reunion barbecue. He was the type who flirted with every woman in the room, laughing too loud, bragging too much. Emily had introduced him as just Jason, an old buddy, and I hadn't thought twice about it after that. Until now. Because the way he grabbed her around the waist, pulling her close, burying his face in her neck. It wasn't the way you greet a friend. It was the way you touch someone who belongs to you. I sat there, numb, as they disappeared inside together. I should have stormed over. I should have smashed the door down. But I was frozen. Staring at the cracked windshield, the dashboard lights blurring through my tears. Everything we had built, everything I thought was unshakable, was crashing down around me. And I had no idea what to do next. I drove home in a daze. I didn't even remember putting the car in park or walking through the front door. Cooper barked happily at me, wagging his tail. I knelt down and hugged him, burying my face in his fur, letting the tears come. Real, ugly, soul-crushing sobs. Not just because Emily had betrayed me. But because now I had to decide whether to fight for a life that might have already died behind my back. Or walk away from everything I thought I knew. And deep down, a colder voice whispered, "You haven't even seen the worst of it yet." The next morning felt like waking up inside someone else's life. I watched Emily move around the kitchen like nothing had changed, humming along to some pop song on the radio, pouring coffee into her favorite mug, the one I bought her when we went to Charleston on our first anniversary. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, her eyes still sleepy, her cheeks flushed from the shower. She looked normal, happy, innocent. But I knew better now. Everything about her felt like a carefully curated performance. A role she slipped into with practiced ease. I couldn't eat. I couldn't even drink my coffee. "You okay, babe?" she asked, glancing over. I forced a smile. "Just tired." A lie. Another crack in the foundation of a life that was crumbling with every breath I took. After she left for work or wherever she was really going, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the receipt from Blossom Beauty like it was a cursed object. For Jason. How long had it been going on? Was it new? Was it some reckless mistake? Or had I been living a lie for months, years? I needed answers. Real ones. And I knew exactly where to start. I grabbed Emily's old laptop from the office upstairs, the one she rarely used anymore since she got her work-issued MacBook. It was dusty, sitting at the bottom of the bookshelf, half buried under old photo albums. I opened it up, fingers trembling. The login screen appeared. Password protected. Of course it was. I stared at the blinking cursor. What would she use? Our anniversary? Cooper's birthday? I typed in Cooper 123 on a whim. Access granted. Jesus. Part of me wanted to slam the lid shut. Pretend I hadn't seen it. Pretend everything was fine. But another part, the part that had seen her disappear into the arms of another man, kept going. I clicked through her old email accounts first. Nothing too suspicious at first glance. Work emails, receipts from stores, spam. But then I noticed an account I didn't recognize listed under her profiles. m.carson.love@gmail.com. Private. Separat. Created about 6 months ago. I tried logging in using the same password logic. Cooper. Our wedding date. Our old address. Nothing. Locked out. But the fact that it existed was enough. Enough to know she had a life she didn't want me to see. I slammed the laptop shut, disgusted with myself, disgusted with her, disgusted with everything. My hands were shaking. I needed air. I grabbed Cooper's leash and headed outside, needing to clear my head before I did something I couldn't take back. The autumn air was crisp, biting against my cheeks. Leaves crunched under my sneakers as Cooper tugged excitedly ahead, oblivious to the chaos unraveling inside me. I wandered aimlessly through the neighborhood, past houses full of lives that, on the surface, seemed so much more intact than mine. And that's when I saw her. Not Emily. Sierra. The cashier from Blossom Beauty. She was sitting at an outdoor cafe, sipping something from a giant coffee cup, earbuds in, scrolling her phone. On impulse, I crossed the street. "Hey," I said, awkwardly waving. She looked up, surprised, then smiled. "Oh hey. Beauty store husband." I chuckled weakly. "Yeah. That's me." I hesitated, then blurted out. "Can I ask you something?" She pulled out an earbud, curious. "Sure. The other day, when you mentioned my wife coming in, was she alone?" Sierra tilted her head, frowning. "Alone? No. She was with some guy. Big guy. Dark hair? Leather jacket?" My stomach twisted. "Did you happen to catch his name?" I asked, my voice barely steady. Sierra laughed a little. "No. But they seemed pretty close. He paid for her stuff. She told him to put his name on the gift note, for Jay." She paused, sensing something was wrong. "Is everything okay?" I forced another smile, feeling like my face might crack open. "Yeah. Thanks. Just curious." I walked away before she could ask any more questions. Back home, I collapsed onto the couch, Cooper curling up beside me, offering silent, loyal comfort. There it was. Confirmation. She wasn't just cheating. She was building memories with someone else. Shopping dates. Private emails. Gift exchanges. A whole life. Without me. That night, when Emily came home smelling like perfume and excuses, I couldn't look at her. I couldn't touch her. And she knew something was wrong. "You're so distant lately," she said, pouting, tracing her fingers down my arm. "Is everything okay?" I turned my head away, disgust burning hot under my skin. "Just tired," I repeated. Another lie. One more nail in the coffin of whatever love we used to have. I don't know how long I sat there after she said it. A few months. Those words kept echoing inside my skull like a gunshot. A few months. While I woke up next to her every morning. While I bought her flowers just because. While I took her parents out for Sunday brunch, smiling like an idiot, thinking I had it all. I stared at Emily through a haze of disbelief. She was still crying, still trying to explain, like there was any version of this story where she didn't come out a monster. It was a mistake," she said, voice cracking. "It started one night when we fought. I was upset, I had too much wine. Jason was just there. I didn't say a word. I just watched her. Watched her twist and squirm under the weight of her own guilt. But it didn't mean anything," she rushed on, desperate. "It was stupid, and it's over now. I ended it. I swear, baby, please. Baby." The word hit me like a slap. She had no right to call me that anymore. Not after what she had done. Not after the way she had shattered the life we built together. "How could you?" I asked finally, my voice dangerously calm. Emily sobbed harder. "I don't know. I was stupid. I thought you didn't love me the same anymore, you were always so busy with work, and I felt lonely. Blame me." Of course. It was easier than facing the truth about herself. I stood up, my legs shaky, the rage simmering just beneath my skin. "I worked for us," I said coldly. "For our future. For our family. I was out there breaking my back while you were here, finding comfort in the arms of another man." She flinched like I had hit her. Good. Maybe it was about time she felt a fraction of the pain she had unleashed on me. I walked into the kitchen, needing space, needing to breathe. Cooper padded after me, ears back, sensing the tension in the air. I grabbed the counter for support, feeling like the floor was tilting under me. Everything I believed in gone. Every memory poisoned. The Christmas mornings. The vacations. The nights spent planning our future. All a lie. A pretty facade covering the rot underneath. Emily followed me into the kitchen, still crying, still pleading. "We can fix this," she said desperately. "We can go to therapy. We can work through this. Please, don't throw us away." I turned to face her. "I didn't throw us away, Emily," I said. "You did." She crumpled at those words, sliding down onto the floor, hugging her knees to her chest, sobbing uncontrollably. I should have felt something. Pity. Anger. Sadness. But all I felt was a cold, hollow emptiness. Like everything inside me had already died. I went upstairs, grabbed a duffel bag from the closet, and started throwing clothes into it. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't rushed. It was deliberate. Because I knew now staying would only destroy me further. Emily followed me upstairs, still begging. "Where are you going? Please, don't leave, we can talk about this, we can fix it, I love you, please, please." I zipped the bag shut and looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman I once saw as my partner, my best friend, my home. Now nothing but a stranger in my house. "I'm not staying here tonight," I said quietly. "And I'm not coming back." Her face crumpled like a paper doll. "Please," she whispered, reaching out. I stepped back. Out of her reach. Out of her life. Downstairs, Cooper waited at the door, his leash clutched between his teeth, as if he knew we were leaving. "You're taking the dog?" Emily cried, broken. I stared at her. "He's the only one who didn't lie to me," I said. And then I walked out. The night air slapped me awake as soon as I stepped outside. Sharp. Cold. Real. I loaded the duffel bag into the car, Cooper hopping into the passenger seat without hesitation. The house behind me loomed in the darkness, the windows glowing warmly, mocking me. That house was no longer my home. It hadn't been for a long time. I had just been too blind to see it. I drove for hours with no real destination. Past the glowing lights of the city. Past the sleeping suburbs. Past the places we once went together, now just ghost towns in my memory. Eventually, I pulled into a motel off the highway. Cheap. Ugly. Perfect. I checked in, carrying my bag and Cooper into a room that smelled like bleach and sadness. I collapsed onto the bed, staring up at the ceiling. And for the first time in weeks. For the first time since the receipt fell into my hands. For the first time since my world shattered. I slept. Not well. Not peacefully. But I slept. Because the worst had already happened. And somehow, I had survived it. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the grimy windows. A new day. A new beginning. And somewhere deep inside, beneath all the hurt and the betrayal and the loss, a tiny spark of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. There would be lawyers. There would be paperwork. There would be ugly, messy endings. But there would also be healing. And freedom. And eventually, maybe even, happiness. Not with Emily. Not with the woman who chose a few nights of attention over a lifetime of loyalty. But with someone else. Someone who would choose me. Every damn day. Until then, I had myself. I had Cooper. And I had the truth. And no matter how broken I felt now. No matter how many pieces I had to pick up. I swore one thing as I packed my bag again and headed out into the morning light. I will never let someone else's lies define my worth again.